And one of the big stories in Top Fuel has been a team that has set the scoreboards ablaze, and that performance hasn't come in the way of elapsed time. It has come in the form and shape of big speeds, and that lightning for Brittany Force struck in that third qualifying session. As the conditions cooled off, the tuner set the car up, read the conditions, and as we expected, she absolutely scored the previous track record with her first 340-mile-per-hour run at this racetrack. And now a look at the Fent record-setting performance for the weekend. As you can see, Brittany Force and her team owns 8 of the top 9 top-performing runs of the year. And with already 1 win on the season, Brittany, the question remains for this team, how do you convert those big runs into wins?
That's the really tricky part. That's what we've been focusing on. Our focus has not been mile per hours. Our priority has not been mile per hours. They just keep coming with the runs that we happen to be making. Our focus is ET and win lights. That's our goal today, 4 win lights. We haven't done it since Epping, but we'd love to do it here in Brainerd right before we go into the biggest race of the season in Indy.
And Bruno Massel has more.
The pair fire now. Brittany Force and Will Smith. Smith driving the Luigi Novelli National Machine Repair Top Fueler. And for Brittany Force, the Monster Energy John Force Racing Chevrolet colors as she brings that car, the fastest top fuel dragster in history, through the water box. Now let's go to the top end. Bruno Massel's with a guy that we may have to rename Jordan Vandergriff. And the parts may be quivering inside the trailer thinking about it. So here we go, Brittany Force. These are the tailor-made conditions for the big speeds. We've seen Doug Coletta. Now we see Brittany get her shot against Will Smith.
Well, I think the interesting thing that plays into a matchup like this is strategy. For Brittany Force, the numbers don't lie. She should win this race. She should out-accelerate Will Smith. They've had a good car, but if you pull these cars back and try to make them conservative, they stick that rear tire, they can go out and shake, and that would open the door for Will Smith. They don't want to do that.
And Brittany's marching. Brittany Force goes 369.2 at 338.77 miles an hour. If we can say David Grubnick is conservative, that's kind of a David Grubnick conservative run. It's all-star stuff for everybody else.
Well, they're looking at a couple of things. Like I mentioned, they didn't want to change the setup on the car, but they do want to pull it back to some degree. They played it smart. I'm sure they're going to look and size up their opponent for the next round to figure out how much quicker they need to go, if at all. But you look at the 338-mile-an-hour speed, and you talk to the tuner of this car, and he will tell you every time that the speed is just a bonus. It comes with the performance, and if they could improve on the elapsed time, that's what they're out here shooting for.
With this round win, Brittany Force is now 1 round behind Antron Brown. She's trying to surpass Brown for the number 5 spot. Let's talk to Clay Millican, who's with Bruno.
Clay Millican gets a chance.
Big matchup here. Sean Langdon and Brittany Force. So Brittany Force continues to climb in the point. She's trying to catch Antron Brown. A round win here will put her within spitting distance of him. Sean Langdon, as the points leader, has watched the likes of Tony Stewart fall by the wayside. Ashley's fallen by the wayside. Now is the time for him and his entire operation to put some real gap between everybody else and potentially get themselves to the precipice of that regular season championship and $150,000 bonus. But as we can see just there, Brittany Force has not beaten Langdon this season. I don't know how long that lasts.
This is a tough matchup for Brittany Force. She's arguably has one of the best cars, a top 3 car. There's no doubt about that. But when you race Sean Langdon, here again, you're competing against one of the best cars, one of the best teams, but you have one of the best drivers in the seat. So when you go up against Sean Langdon, factoring in the fact that he was the quickest car in the first round, you got to bring some heat to the starting line.
To factor in the starting line performance, last round Brittany was 0.66 on the 67 on the tree. Sean was 0.66. They're even. Langdon's car hazes the tires, and Brittany now 1 for 5, going 3. Look at that, 341.25, 367.9, 341.25 miles an hour. That thing is beastly. The 9th time she has gone 340, and only one other person has ever done it once.
You got to keep in mind, when these cars come to the starting line, there are several levels of competition. The drivers have control of the race car, but make no mistake about it, this tuner walking away was geared up to compete against that car and that team. So when he's making his decisions to set this car up, and how he expects it to perform and what he thinks it needs to do on the racetrack to get to the finish line first. He did his job. She was good enough off the starting line. Sean Langdon, fortunately for Brittany, encountered problems because he did have a 0.03 of a second advantage off the starting line.
The thing that this car brings with it, Tony, beyond the great driver, beyond the great tuner, is the absolute monstrous reputation it carries. And listen, Sean was 44 in the tree, did his job. The thing hazed the tires, but you can see John Collins looking down the racetrack. That's a big number. It will be Force. It'll be Millican. It'll be Coletta and Torrance, the 1, 4, 2, and 6 qualifiers in Top Fuel. And for the second day straight, or I should say the second day this weekend, the Brainerd faithful have been rewarded with a massive speed. Part of the run, but for Doug Coletta, that 366. Strong as an ox as the FlexJet drone shows us Brittany Force. Clay Millican here. As Brittany heats the tires, let's take a look at how she found her way into this semi-final round, seeking her next final. And there's Clay Millican, man who won Pomona, California this year. But for Brittany Force, the day began with Will Smith in the other lane, driving the National Machine Repair Machine, or dragster, I should say, owned by Luigi Novelli. Took care of business there in the first round, a very solid run of 369, 338.77. And then they really opened the taps up on this car in the second round.
Yeah, and this is what we call rising to the occasion. A very tough matchup with Sean Langdon leading the points and just gearing up for it, being good off the starting line. And of course, that team, the way they set this car up was with bad intentions.
They walk back to the pit area. They survey the conditions, which have been very, very consistent throughout the day. It allows the crew chiefs to really winnow in on what they're trying to accomplish, as now both cars get ready to roll in. Jim Oberhofer may not get the same level of Broadway lights, if you will, as David Grubnick with all these 341-mile-an-hour speeds, but this thing just went 337 and change in the last run. They're in the ballpark.
Yeah, and it'd be a good time for this team to step on the performance somewhat.
Clay Millican's trying to take the fight to Brittany Force, and he did it. 371.5 at 321 miles an hour as Brittany runs 371.8 at 337. But Clay Millican has been absolutely on point all day. He's 53 here on the tree.
You know, you go back the last few races, Clay Millican, he's been kicked around a little bit on the starting line. He came into this race a different man. They qualified well. They were consistent. But this guy is really on the wheel, on the starting line, and it makes a difference when you get to the semifinals, when you're up against Brittany Force, and when it comes down to the driver reflexes. Now, he did outperform her by a few thousandths of a second on the racetrack, but it was that starting line jump that just padded this victory.
It's Millican's first final since the Norwalk race that he lost on a hole shot. He is looking to redeem that, and you can see Jim Oberhofer reacting with a fist pump. He and Nicky Bonifani will go back and tune her up. Now let's go to the top end of the racetrack. Bruno Massels with Doug Coletta.